Hello everyone, welcome to Marlin Chess Kids. Today I'll show you the game played by Ekaterina and Volkan. And the game starts with the pawn to d4. Then the black play d5. And now the white continue to play a c4, and here you have the queen gambit opening. Then the black capture, and this will be the queen gambit accepted. And after this, the knight move to f3, then knight to f6, and e3 was played, then e6 was played, and here is the first 5 move, and you can see that the position is slightly better for the white. And in this game also, I wanted to show you that the game complete in 40 moves, and the rest of the game you see that the evaluation for all the moves will be slightly the same and in the equal position, and only until the move 40 that the black make a brilliant sacrifice and win the game. So let's see how both of these players continue to play. And the game to continue, the white play bishop takes c4, and c5 was played. Then the white continued to castling, and a6 was played, and the b3 was played. Then the knight to c6 and keep on the development. Then bishop to b2, keep on the strong diagonal, and then the bishop to e7 to prepare for a short castling. Then the knight develop, knight b to d2, and the black castling. Then the knight to e5. Then c takes d4, and here is the first 10 move. You can see that the white is still slightly better in the position. And now the knight capture the c6, and the b capture c6, and then the bishop takes d4. So now you have the 2 double bishop, and you have a very strong diagonal attack towards this position. So c5 was played to attack the bishop, and bishop back to b2, then bishop to b7 to have a strong diagonal attack the pawn, and queen to e2, preparing to move the rook to d1 and attack the queen. Then queen to c7, and now rook f to d1, then bishop to d6, and h3 was played to prevent the pawn being captured by the bishop. Then after this, the black played bishop to h2 and check the king, and king to f1, then bishop to e5, preparing to trade off the bishop, and if the bishop capture, the queen will go to the center square. So knight f3 was played, and bishop takes the bishop, remove one of the double bishop pair. So after capture the bishop, then queen capture the bishop, and now the bishop takes the knight, bishop takes f3, and here the black trying to destroy the structure of the white pawn that protect the king. So after this, the pawn capture back, and here you have a double pawn, a weak double pawn at this position. And after this, the black continue to play a5, and after this, the white play king to g2. Then rook f to d8, and now the rook capture, and you bring another rook capture again. Then the rook to c1, and h5 was played, and queen to c3, trying to attack the pawn at the a5. And here the knight continue to develop, knight to d5 and attack the queen, and bishop capture. Then the rook capture, and at this position you have the same pieces and the same pawn, and this will be the end game with the king, queen and rook versus king, queen and rook. And you can see that you have the equal 6 pawn versus 6 pawn as well, and this position at the move 25 is equal game, and the game continue later with the much of the action, such as the white move h4, then the queen to d8, and here you have a lot of idea that the rook can go to the rank 2 and attack the pawn structure, and also the queen will have the idea of attacking the pawn at h4. So a single move from the queen will have two functions, so a single move and a double attack and double function. After this, the e4, attack the rook, and the rook go to d2, keep on the pressure towards the white, and now the pawn to a4, then the queen to d4 and go for the exchange, and if the queen takes d4, and now c takes d4, and this pawn will be very strong as you have another 3 move, and you become promote as a queen. So here the endgame has been converted to a king rook versus king rook endgame, and here 29 move. And after this position, the white continue to play a rook to c8 and check the king, and the king move to h7, then the rook to c5, preparing to have a double attack of the pawn. So at this stage, the white has an edge of winning one piece, and after this, the king go to g6, and now the white capture the pawn, and here is winning one pawn, but somehow the black can able to capture back the pawn. For instance, the rook can move to rook b2 and capture the pawn, and if the rook to the white play a rook to g5 and attack the king, and now the king move to h6, then rook to b5, and here after prevent the pawn, and this pawn will be able to push and promote a queen. There's another 3 steps. So is this position endgame is the matter of who will be faster to promote the pawn to become a queen, and for those who move faster, you're able to win the game. And after this, the d3 was played. So this pawn will be a very strong threat, and here the white play rook to b7 and trying to capture the pawn at f6. So instead of leaving the free pawn, the black played f6, and after this the pawn move to a5, at this position, you can see that the white will have another 3 moves to promote queen, and while the black will have 2 moves. So rook b1 will try to threaten and win with the pawn to d2, and here it's a matter of who will be the faster. So after this, the rook to d7 to prevent the pawn to push to d2, and you push to d2, the rook will just capture, and after this the rook move away to d7, then this pawn will be able to be captured by the black, and now the position still become equal again. So it's very hard for both to win. Somehow the black managed to create a very beautiful idea. So after this, the black trying to push, the white trying to push the pawn forwards, such as f4. And after this, the rook go to a3 and trying to capture the side pawn. And now the rook to d6, attacking the pawn at e6. And if you rook capture, then the rook will be able to capture. But in the actual game, the black capture the pawn at a5. And now the best way for the white to play is to capture the pawn, and the game will be equal with the 4 pawn versus 4 pawn, and with 2 rook, so it will be the king rook endgame. So in the actual game, after this move, the white capture the pawn at e6, and the white have the idea that if the pawn move forward, then the rook will back to d6 and capture the pawn. However, at this move, and after capture the pawn, this is a tactical blunder, and here the black is winning. I give you a couple of seconds how to figure out how the black can move and win the game. Well, congratulations for those who found the answer, and for those who like to enjoy the show, here are the beautiful moves that the black played. In the actual game, the black played a brilliant sacrifice by playing a rook to d5, and this sacrifice is to prevent the rook to control the d file, and if the rook back to d file, then the rook will just capture. So this prevents the rook to go to d file, and the pawn at the d3 will push forwards and become a queen. And if the pawn to capture, and the pawn also will be able to push down and win. So in this position, after the rook move to d5, and this is only the winning move, and after this brilliant sacrifice, the white resign the game. And if the game to continue, for example, if you capture with the pawn, then the pawn will just move to d2, and now there is no place you can prevent the promotion of the pawn, and the king is out of the square to attack the pawn. And also the rook are not able to move to d file and attack the pawn, as it is being blocked by its own pawn. And also the rook cannot come to the e1 square, as the pawn will capture back the rook. So therefore there will be nothing much the black can do. So if you push the f3 pawn, then the pawn will promote at the queen and will be winning in this game. So back to the position, and if the rook move to a6, and again the rook will not move and instead move the pawn forwards, and if you capture the rook, then the pawn will promote and become a queen. So at this stage, this is one of the brilliant sacrifice that, regardless of how the white move, and the black is clearly winning with this beautiful sacrifice of the rook. So this rook cannot be captured, and if you capture, it will win. And if you do not capture the rook, if you move any other pieces, then the pawn will just push to d2 and promote a queen. So this is one of the amazing endgame with the rook sacrifice. And with this, thank you.